used to call her the luckiest woman alive. Her husband adored her, pampered her with gifts, and treated her like royalty. But jealousy wears many faces, and sometimes, they look just like your closest friends. Sandra was once the envy of all her friends. Her husband, Kenneth, was a successful architect, handsome, soft-spoken, and generous to a fault. Birthdays were marked with designer bags. Anniversaries meant trips to Dubai. Even random weekdays came with fresh roses and surprise deliveries. But Sandra didn't see the man, only the gifts. And her friends? They noticed everything. They smiled when he picked her up from parties. They cheered when she showed off new jewelry. But behind closed doors, their envy brewed into something dangerous. It all started with whispers. Innocent, subtle, deadly. Sandra's friends weren't just friends. They were undercover saboteurs. And their weapons were words, carefully laced with poison. One afternoon, after brunch at a fancy cafe in Lekki, Clara leaned closer and said in a low voice, "Sandra, you know men like Kenneth are always too good to be true, right?" Sandra raised a brow. "What do you mean?" Clara sipped her mimosa and gave a sly smile. "He buys you flowers and gifts almost every week. He must be overcompensating for something." Before Sandra could respond, a marker chimed in with fake concern. "Has he ever told you where he goes after work? Don't you find it strange that he's always busy lately?" She made air quotes with her fingers, rolling her eyes. "Girl, shine your eyes. You're acting like a house pet, wagging your tail because he throws you a few bones," Bisi added, twirling her braid. Sandra laughed nervously. "No now, Kenneth isn't like that. He's just sweet." They all exchanged knowing glances and burst into laughter. But that laughter left a bitter echo in Sandra's mind. That night, as she sat alone in their tastefully furnished living room, her eyes wandered to her phone. He hadn't texted since morning. Her heart skipped. What if they're right, she thought. What if Kenneth is hiding something? The seed was planted. From then on, she began to see shadows in daylight. She questioned his delayed responses, his late meetings, his tiredness when he got home. One evening, Kenneth came home early with a surprise gift, a pair of luxury heels she had once mentioned in passing. Instead of thanking him, she frowned. "Where did you suddenly get the time to buy this? Or are you just trying to distract me?" Kenneth blinked. "Distract you from what?" "From the truth. Do you think I'm blind?" Confused and hurt, Kenneth placed the gift gently on the table and quietly walked away. She didn't notice the disappointment in his eyes. All she saw was her distorted truth, and her friends' voices whispering. Men like him always hide something. The warmth that once filled their home had turned into icy silence, broken only by shouting matches. Each morning, Sandra woke up not with a kiss, but with suspicion burning in her chest. She would watch Kenneth's every move, his calls, his dressing, even how long he stayed in the shower. One morning, she stood in the hallway, arms folded tightly, as Kenneth adjusted his tie before the mirror. "Who are you dressing up for, Kenneth?" she snapped. He turned, stunned. "Sandra, what are you saying? You didn't compliment my dress yesterday, but you're here fixing your tie like you're meeting your side chick." Kenneth blinked in disbelief. "Sandra, it was just a long day. I didn't mean to forget." "Forget?" she screamed. "I'm your wife, not one of your office girls." And just like that, the argument exploded. The fights became more frequent, louder, nastier, more public. If he returned home late, even by 10 minutes, she'd fling his food into the sink. If he smiled at a text, she'd snatch his phone and scroll through every message like a detective hungry for evidence. There was no joy, no laughter, no peace. And the worst part? She didn't stop at home. Sandra began following him to his office, unannounced. One Tuesday afternoon, she stormed into the boardroom during a client meeting. "Kenneth!" she shouted, bursting through the glass doors. Everyone turned, shocked. "Who is Veronica? And why did she send you a smiley emoji at 10 p.m.? Kenneth's face flushed with embarrassment. His clients exchanged awkward glances. His assistant tried to usher Sandra out, but she refused. "You think I'm stupid? You think I don't know what's going on?" she yelled, throwing his phone on the table. Kenneth sat frozen, ashamed, humiliated. After that day, rumors spread like wildfire. Clients pulled out. Staff started whispering. His image at work, once respected, was now a subject of gossip and pity. And through it all, Sandra's so-called friends cheered her on. She put him in his place. Clara giggled on a WhatsApp voice note. "Well done, girl," Amaka typed. "Don't let any man disgrace you. Ever." But deep down, they were satisfied. Not with her courage, but with her downfall. Kenneth grew quieter, distant. He would come home and sit in silence, eating alone. Sometimes, he'd sleep on the couch, still dressed for work. Sandra saw it, but her pride wouldn't let her back down. She believed she was winning the war, but she didn't realize she was burning her home to ashes, with her own hands. It was a Friday morning, quiet, unusually quiet. Kenneth got dressed like always, in his neatly ironed blue shirt and gray slacks. His cologne filled the room, strong, but calm, just like the man he used to be. Sandra was on the bed, scrolling through her phone, not even looking up. He stood by the door, watching her for a moment, as if waiting for something. A goodbye, a smile, a reason to stay. None came. So, he walked over and planted a soft kiss on her forehead, like he always did. She flinched and pushed his hand away. "You don't have to pretend anymore," she muttered, her eyes still glued to the screen. Kenneth's hand froze midair. He stared at her, nodded slowly, and turned to leave. She didn't know that would be the last time she'd ever see him. That night, Sandra waited. And waited. The clock ticked past 9 p.m. No calls. No texts. His number rang out. Her annoyance turned to irritation. He must be playing games, she thought. Maybe this time he really is with someone else. By midnight, she was pacing the living room. She tried his office, his family, his driver. No one had seen him. He left the office around 4 p.m., his secretary said. He said he needed some air. But he never made it home. By sunrise, panic began to set in. She rushed to the police, filed a report, drove to nearby hospitals, called all his friends. Nothing. Kenneth had disappeared. Completely. For the first time in months, Sandra sat alone in their bedroom and cried. Not the usual frustrated tears, but the kind that comes when your soul begins to realize what it's lost. She called his phone over 100 times, left voicemails filled with regret and apologies. But there was no response. Only the haunting sound of an automated voice saying, "This number is not reachable at the moment." Days passed. Then weeks. Still nothing. The house was too quiet now. Too big. The shadows on the wall mocked her. The smell of his cologne lingered on the pillow, taunting her with memories of what once was. And through it all, her friends? Gone. Grief turned into guilt. And guilt gave birth to questions. Where is he? Is he dead? Was he kidnapped? But no ransom call came. No body was found. Just silence. Sandra's once lively home became a haunted space. She barely ate. She barely slept. The same woman who used to yell every night now sat curled on the floor, whispering his name through trembling lips. Kenneth was gone. But her friends? The ones who fueled the fire that drove him away? They vanished too. Clara stopped responding to texts. Amaka claimed she was traveling to the village and never came back. BC blocked her altogether. At first, Sandra assumed they were busy. But soon, the truth began to unravel like old thread. It started with a neighbor, Madame Ruth, an older woman who had seen it all. One evening, as Sandra walked to the gate to collect a delivery, Madame Ruth approached quietly. "My daughter," she said gently, "I didn't want to interfere in your marriage, but there are things you need to know." Sandra's heart raced. "I saw Clara here one afternoon," Madame Ruth continued. "You were out of town. She came in tight clothes, full makeup. Kenneth looked uncomfortable. She even tried to enter his car. Sandra's mouth opened, but no words came. She wasn't the only one. Amaka came here too. Once at night. I heard them arguing. Kenneth shouted, "You're my wife's best friend. What is wrong with you?" Then he pushed her out. Sandra's knees buckled. Days later, she visited Kenneth's office to beg his colleague for any clue. The receptionist looked around, leaned closer, and whispered, "Madam, I'm sorry, but your friends? They used to come here behind your back." "What? Why?" Sandra stammered. "They tried to seduce him. Everyone in the office knew. He rejected them all. We even warned him. But he said he didn't want to hurt you." Sandra broke down right there in the lobby. She had destroyed her home with her own hands, but the matchstick was lit by jealous hearts she trusted. The women she called sisters were the ones feeding her lies. They poisoned her mind, disguised as supporters, while secretly chasing the very man they envied her for having. And Kenneth? He fought silently. He endured the disrespect. He carried the weight of a marriage turned toxic. Until the weight crushed him. And he walked away. It had been 4 months since Kenneth disappeared. For long, torturous months. Sandra no longer recognized the woman staring back at her in the mirror. Her once glowing skin was dull. Her eyes, sunken. The loud, confident woman who used to scream at her husband now lived in silence, with nothing but memories echoing through the halls of their empty home. The laughter that once filled the house had faded into ghosts. The perfume-scented notes Kenneth used to leave on her pillow were now replaced by unanswered questions and prayers that went nowhere. Then one morning, something arrived. The gate man brought it to her, an envelope, plain and unassuming, but heavy with the weight of truth. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. It was from Kenneth. The moment she saw his handwriting, her heart dropped. A single tear rolled down her cheek. Her fingers trembled as she began to read. "Sandra, I'm writing you this letter not to hurt you, but to free myself. I left not because I didn't love you, but because I loved you so much, too much, to watch us destroy each other. I gave my all, Sandra. I fought for you. I endured the shouting, the public disgrace, the accusations, even the insults. Not because I was weak, but because I believed in us. But I was bleeding in silence, and every time I tried to speak, you shut me down with more suspicion. Your friends hated what we had. They didn't advise you, they used you. And you let them. They came to me, each one of them, offering themselves while pretending to protect you. I said no, every time. But you never saw the battles I fought behind your back. You thought I was the enemy, when I was the only one truly fighting for your heart. I've left Nigeria. I've started over. I won't say where I am. Not yet. I need peace. I need healing. Maybe one day, when the anger fades and the truth settles, you'll remember that I loved you, truly. Goodbye, Kenneth." The letter slipped from her hands and floated to the floor. Sandra let out a broken cry, raw, real, and shattering. She fell to her knees. This wasn't just heartbreak. It was regret, sharp and unforgiving. The kind that doesn't let you sleep at night. The kind that keeps replaying the moments you ignored someone who was only trying to love you. The irony? She had spent months accusing him of cheating, while he was defending her behind closed doors. She pushed him out of her life, trying to prove a lie told by people who wanted to steal her truth. Now she was alone. Truly, completely alone. And the worst part? She had no one to blame but herself.